Talking Writing. Growing Up in the City, Spring Term 1984, Programme 2, Mucky, Brew by Dora Turner. Taking part, Shirley Dixon.
That's how it was when I was a girl. We were on the move to a new home, a cottage in Tatty Street. The dapple grey bulked to the crank of wheels and leather strappings, sweating and straining the miscellaneous load of chattels and people, chaffering the pedestrian jaywalkers, capped, clogged and shawled, threading their way through the needling traffic. Polished tram lines ribboned away in the distance as lumbering tram cars, congested with passengers, thundered and rocked the cross-sections, scattering in their rear a fluttering dust of tram tickets. The heavy steel-shod hooves of the horse rang on the cobbled highway. Off the Manchester route branched the little streets, veining away, a sprawling mesh almost engulfing the great Platts Brothers Ironworks and Worneth railway station with its formidable battery of steam engines. Crowns of uneven chimney pots, like upturned crucibles, belched sooty grey smoke which enveloped the lower atmosphere. At the entrance of a cul-de-sac was a horizontal building, flagged and bolted near ground level for support, and signed Baxter Bros, Wheelwrights and Smiths. Opposite this building lay Tatty Street, with its dozen or so cottages. There were lots of cottages in Oldham, vacant and easy to rent, and my mam plumped for the house in the cul-de-sac because, for one reason, it was in close proximity to my father's job, and the other because it promised a fair share of living space. The cottage, like others, comprised 4 rooms, 2 up, 2 down. There was the regulation fire grate which mam degreased and blackleaded every Friday morning. On the mantelshelf, decorated with velvet baubles, mam displayed her ornaments and vases. Placed at table centre every evening at dusk, a beautiful emerald glass and brass table lamp, which at times became a hair-tearing source of frustration when mam couldn't encourage the spluttering wick flame to burn evenly, she being fully convinced that the ironmonger who sold paraffin had mixed in water to give added weight. Well, she was half right. What she didn't know was that Johnny Robinson had taught me a fast trick. When his mam sent him for 2 penn'orth of chips, he asked for 3 halfpenn'orth and profited by pocketing the halfpenny for himself. So, when mam sent me to the shop for a pint of paraffin, I asked the ironmonger not for a pint, but 2 pennyworth. 2 penn'orth? He shouted in my ear, scaring me half to death. Suspiciously he pushed forward the oil can. I couldn't get out of the shop fast enough, dashing for home and clasping my profit. Halfway up the cul-de-sac, I noticed rainwater trickling from Mrs. Rennie's lavatory roof. So, as a sop to my ailing conscience, I part-filled the pint can by catching the rainy drips. I expect at that time my mam thought it was good measure. Once a week down Tatty Street clopped old Fag, the rag and bone man. Sloping side saddle in the shaft of his donkey cart, and disconsolate donkey almost collapsing under the undistributed weight. Yodeling in his cracked treble, "Donkey Stone, Yellowstone, Creamstone." I ran outdoors to the cart, pushing into his grimy fist a few rags, cow-heel bones, or whatever me mam could quickly rustle up as fair exchange. "Hey, love, what?" "Creamstone," I demanded, 'cause me mam preferred it. Me mam, like all the neighbours, mopped their steps and front flagstones with a malleable sandstone, cream or yellow. It lent a bit of cheerful colour to some of the drab cottages. Women folk took a lot of pride in a certain competition in the finished product, flourishing mop and bucket like a palette and brush, and standing back with as much reflection as would credit a pavement artist on the Thames Embankment. Old Mrs. Rennie was so compulsed when doing her stint, I imagined she might take off, lose control, and do all the Cart Road cobblestones as well. Wet or fine, on went the rubbing stone quick as the rain washed it off. Now, it was a source of irritation to us kids, driven to distraction by the old lady's enthusiasm, but me mam respected her. "She's an old faggot," she said, "but you're not to tread on her mopping." The old faggot lived at number 8 Tatty Street, and between us kids she held an all-out battle, her warhead being a bald broom which she flourished like a banner over half a dozen flagstones. For us kids, it became a nerve-wracking game of duck and creep under her windowsill each time we passed by. Even the hungry workmen, high-tailing it home for dinner from Doddy's ironworks, were brainwashed into a half-circle round the holy ground, as were the moggies and mongrels, all educated to Mother Rennie's donkey stone. With gimlet eye, she peeked between the lacy rifts in her window curtain, as if crouching to pounce. "Gives her summat to do," was the general response. Hoping not to rouse her discontent, we would creep on tiptoe over the creamstone mopping. In clogs, this was something of a balancing act. Take one fatal flat foot, and out she flew on her broomstick, shattering our eardrums. "Get off the mopping, you dirty little varmints!" Already it had reached the point of no return for us kids, so with a bit of pluck we all chanted back, "We all can't walk in Cart Road!" "Well then," she yelled, "walk in next, you saucy little sodpots!" In a vile temper, old Mrs. Rennie banged her door on us, so, swapping defence for offence, and the devil take the hindmost, we dervished our slutchy clog prints all over the beautiful holy ground. At a distance of about 40 yards or so from our front door was a horizontal barrier of paving stones, topped with a fixture of high-pointed palings, and behind this was Doddy's lodge. It was an extensive square of water, these catchment lodges being attached to cotton mills and factories to supply the works' boilers. Doddy's lodge was out of bounds, particularly to us kids, and to emphasise the golden rule, Father's leather razor strap hung from its hook on the side of the mantelpiece. Emphatic, too, were the don'ts. "Don't climb the lodge wall, you'll scrape your clog toes," shoes on Sundays. "Don't jump the lodge bank, you'll break your legs. Don't dig for worms in that mucky slut, you'll get fever. Don't go fishing, and not in one ear and out of t'other either." All these commandments we listened to with an honest, wide-eyed innocence and respect. Then we went fishing. We knew parents couldn't be expected to keep a roll call or a 24-hour watch to pick us off. Sooner or later we slipped the nets, and that was the sunny hour when we waited for Annie to join us. She clattered apace round the corner cul-de-sac, plaits flying out a puff and jousting her thumb. "They've been rowing," she breathed, meaning her mum and dad, "so I sneaked off. It's me grans' fault. She gets mixed up switching her cup of tea with me dad's, and he knows she dugs her false teeth in cup. He seen her do it. It caused a row." "Oh, that's nowt," interrupted Cocker. "I have to cut me grand's toenails before I can play. She's got horny corns too, and she has to cut her all in a slipper to let 'em out." Having had close contact with Cocker's gran, I could well imagine the wallpaper scissors getting a blunt edge. We all scrambled across the lodge palings, arguing the point about the unjustifiable behaviour of grown-ups. There was always an ample supply of fish bait. Just turn a stone, and there they were, wriggling in plentiful supply, and we fished and chattered to our heart's content. A twig, a length of cotton, and a matchstick float, and the jack sharps relished it all. Serene and peaceful in my own private patch, it had to be Auntie who blew my top, pinching my live bait when she thought I wasn't looking. Annoyed to the point of indiscretion, I didn't count to 10. I sped along the narrow ledge of jutting brickwork that sheered off the water's edge. All coordination lost, I performed a beautiful loop-the-loop, something like Brother Frankie's kite when it hit the chimney-pot. With a splash, like a tank, I sank, and fear lending me flippers, I grasped at something jutting out of the water. Coughing and spewing, I crawled across the sharp stones to sweet terra firma, bottoms up, minus me sinking bloomers. Me fishy friends gaped on, but I think they got over their shock far quicker than me, scuttling over the lodge wall like scary water rats and leaving the sinking ship to sort it all out. But of course, me mam got the message. I sank again beneath her verbal floodgates, which flew open as I dripped into the house. "What did I tell you? Look at your petticoats! Where's your bloomers? You've lost your clog!" And so it went on, then worrying about what the neighbours might say, she threatened, "I'll tell your father." But she didn't tell me father. As for me, I hit the Tatty Street headlines with, "It's that tomboy again." Cocker's Whippet was a thief. Some folk said he had a thief's appetite. The nearer the stolen bone, the sweeter the meat. Cocker told me Hector had a pedigree and showed me a long paper with something like a police summons, granddames and grandsires on it. I suppose Cocker's dad was trying to prove Hector was bred out of the top drawer. I think he was, and they should have kept it locked. Me mam said the dog was starving and much too thin. Me dad said whippets were like that. His ribs stuck out, 5 aside, like a little concertina. Mrs. Entwistle threw out all her bits of fat for the birds without looking, and they once caught Mr. Trotter full in the face. But it was Hector who robbed the birds. Not satisfied with that, he sneak-thieved under Mrs. Entwistle's kitchen table and swiped the Sunday joint from off the nearby oven top. He caught her eye just as she was about to dish up the Sunday dinner. Swearing nasty-like, she raked him round the table and tried chasing him up the alley with a meat fork. He skidded round the corner, the joint being heavier than Hector, and slid slap into the enemy cat. Then it was nature in the raw, with Mrs. Entwistle flux between tooth and claws and the mutilated leg of mutton rolling in the dirty drain. Scratch, flustered and in a raging temper, Mrs. Entwistle flayed Cocker's mam with a demand to hand over their Sunday joint as payment in kind. But the Cockers had already eaten their dinner, so it was pot luck for Mrs. Entwistle, who was definitely not to be put off. The Cockers had to soothe and settle her with 1/2 pound of thick-seamed tripe, which didn't go down very well with Mrs. Entwistle's Sunday carrots and turnips and Yorkshire pudding. He, Mr. Entwistle, was extremely mortified in being robbed of his Sunday ritual. Always, after Sunday dinner, he graced the front door jamb, trousers unbraced, fly undone. With loud burps, shaking his mutton-chop moustache, he gnawed and wrestled on what remained of the Sunday joint bone. Perhaps that was fair reason for sly Hector's drooling jealousy. "Well," sniped fat Felicity, ambling by with her frothy jug of Sunday ale, "likes everyone to see they've had meat for dinner. Serves 'em right." Miss Chuck was a teacher rather mild by other standards. She wore white blouses usually and was very plump, with a multiple share of pink chins. She wore large-sized patent leather shoes. Teachers never wore clogs, and when she walked, she trundled. So did Alice, her exact counterweight, who squeezed me up tight in class till I was balancing half on the seat edge. Talking was strictly forbidden in class, but Alice talked when she thought teacher wasn't looking. She leaned, nearly squashing me, and secretly whispered in my ear, "Have you got 'em?" Curious, I whispered back, "What?" "Whiskers on your bottom," she blurted out, knocking me off my seat. Miss Chuck heaved round, then tried hauling Alice in front of the class, quite a feat. "And now?" questioned Miss Chuck, looking rather red and ominous. "What were you saying?" Poor Alice's face suffused to a pink sheen, a guilty conscience robbing her of speech. She mumbled on quite unintelligibly, with Miss Chuck getting more and more exasperated. Stamping her shiny shoe, she switched to me, jutting out a fat finger. "You! Stand up!" I did so smartly. "Now!" she went on, grasping Alice. "What did this girl say to you?" "What, miss?" I answered. What? Bawled Miss Chuck out loud. "What, miss?" I repeated again. Miss Chuck's pink neck pulsated, and she hurled herself at Alice. Now tell me, what did you say to that girl?" Things had reached such a crucial level that everyone in class now raised and strained necks and king-sized ears to catch Alice's answer. Have you got 'em?" stammered Alice, trailing off in embarrassment. "Have you got 'em?" Them, she corrected Alice's English. "Have you got them? Now, speak out loud. What is them?" Poor Alice, deflated now, twisting a penny, forced at last, spoke out loud and clear as all the class leaned forward to hear her. "Whiskers on your bottom." Then a deadly silence, broken with a sing-song "Ooh!" from all the class. Bursting with disgusted indignation, Miss Chuck fell upon Alice. "You great fat thing!" she shouted over and over again, as the two of them trundled and bundled like twin sows between the aisles of desks and round about the wobbly board and easel, which collapsed on impact over Miss Chuck's shiny large-sized shoes, all of us kids relishing the big yig with wide-open mouths and subdued giggles. Later that evening, I walked home with Alice. When she explained to her mam about what happened in class, but not exactly word for word, just the teacher had called her a big fat thing, Alice's mam nodded her aluminium curling pins. "That fat-bellied beggar," she barked, referring to Miss Chuck. "She's no room at all. Then pointing to the kettle on the hob, she went on, "Like yon pan calling yon kettle burnt ass." At times, we could feel the gyrations of the rumbling trains and goods wagons that tunnelled under our house, moling on for miles of underground track, and I thought, what if our Tatty Street territory quaked under the weight of industry, trams, cotton mills and foundries? It was an overpowering thought. Yet I brushed it all under the memory carpet when us kids ran downhill to Werner's station for a bit of train spotting. Trying to look inconspicuous and well-behaved, we sauntered into the waiting room to scan the timesheet board, on pretence of catching a train, yet sneaking sidelong glances towards the suspicious, bespectacled pay clerk, stooled before his centre window. We waited uptight until the moment he moved off centre. Then, like sheet lightning, we banistered down the studded staircase, jumping onto the platform below. No one bothered us there. The smart station master, porters, drivers, or firemen coming and going. Perhaps a friendly ruffle across the ears now and then. We could almost touch the massive, ornamental engines shunting and spewing jets of steam about our legs, or chat up the fireman stoking his boiler fire to its flaming roar. As often before, we were all there to wait and watch in anticipation for the special. The station staff and all concerned gathered there and gave off this silent air of expectancy as we stood virtually on tiptoe. Our ears tuned now to the steadily increased drumbeat of the oncoming steely queen. Our excitement then was high-rise as the dark tunnel crescendoed and trembled with re-echoed power. Soon, in a split second, she would emerge. We all edged backwards as out of the cavernous tunnel she armoured into the clear light of day, a grumbling, rumbling monster hungrily eating up the sleeper tracks, overpowering, towering above us, splitting our eardrums with her backlash of blast. Gone then she was, her power fading in the distance to a rhythmic tapping of tracks, blowing her stack defiantly in triumphant echo, fading, then trailing to a whisper on the wind.